Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, boys and girls. How are we all doing today? Yeah, well, the night is young, isn't it? Oh, hello. Oh, this interface is new, isn't it? Does that? Oh, that means it was from the texture pack thing that they were doing. Yeah, so today we are going to start in Copenhagen. Let's start in Copenhagen, yeah? Yeah. Start here. And then we'll go Malmo. No, not arrival. We will arrive in where? Where? Kristiansand. Yeah? Yeah. By way of Mo, by way of where? Cullen Lighthouse. By way of Gothenburg. Um, this one I don't know what it is. We are going to Oslo, which is up here, I believe. Yeah, right there. We are going to go to Oslo. This bridge, and then Oslo Opera House, fantastic. And then what is? Oh, okay, that's cool. So you know what this is, right? Like a lot of the flight simulators, they actually depend. They spawn this entire secondary market where where creators will create these sort of real to life airports, and yeah, for planes as well, right? So all of these things. Um, ooh, look at that, super. Do I have a controller? Does it work? I don't know. What? Sidewinder. No. Okay, no. That's good. That's good. That's good. We have the control. Do we have the controller? We have the controller. Okay. So we are going to fly the F-18 Super Hornet, and yeah, we'll take a look how this looks like. I remember actually, it was while we have our boy Sidewinder here, it was actually one of these Japan flights, I think, that our friend Sidewinder highly encouraged us to get into Alberta to look at all of the oil wells, and that was a fantastic experience, wasn't it? It was, yeah. And we've had some other sort of people show up, or not show up, but like be involved in the process. Oh, hello. We just started in the middle of the okay. It's fine. I think. Okay. Um. No, I don't want to. I don't want to be in here. There we go. And we are going to fly in this direction. Fantastic. Okay. Yeah, and then we had some other people that came and talked to us about their jobs. It was great. Great. Why? Okay, first of all, why wouldn't you want to fly a Super Hornet, right? Like we can. It is one of those things that we would never get to fly just in general. So it's fantastic. Booster mode and toolbar. Oh, thank you. Right. Okay, that does that. Fantastic. Okay, so we'll fly the Super Hornet. Oh yeah, yeah. We can adjust that. Oh yeah, we should go and see the Rockies. That's a good point. Let's do it one day. Because the Rockies are still a little bit we'll have it at sunrise. There we go. Yeah, because the Rockies would be fun, wouldn't it? Yeah, we should do it. Okay, let's see. So that's the airport, and then we're going to go to Malmo, which is of course Sweden. So this is still Denmark. Denmark and Sweden have such a wonderful history. Well, I say wonderful, but it's fantastically convoluted. Well, it is fantastically convoluted, right? Because at one point, both Sweden and Norway were under a personal union of the Danish crown. And you can just kind of think about what that would have meant if we had, you know, like if that personal union ended up becoming settled under oh, we should play EU4. Yeah, that's a good point. We can play EU4 if there's, I don't know who would sponsor it. But yes, we could. I do wish they would upgrade the water physics just a little bit, so I don't have to like mess with weather just to have some amount of wind. Let's have the ground level. Let's have that like, right? Just so the water isn't completely still, right? Yeah. Anyway, yeah. So personal union between Denmark and Norway and Sweden, and that lasted for a little bit. It didn't last for that long. Sweden was mostly independent for much of history, but the one between Denmark and Norway, of course, lasted a long time. I don't even know when it was dissolved. Don't ask me. There's Wikipedia for that. But yeah, like there is some good-natured rivalry between these countries for that very purpose, right? Because the Danes at one point were considered the overlords of much of this, especially Malmo down here. And this was a lot of it was Danish territory until the Swedes managed to get it back. And that's always fun. Well, yeah, unfortunately after that Denmark became the most famous, well, like aside from Legos obviously, but the most famous was of course 1860 1860 whatever, the crisis of Schleswig and Holstein, right, which was Danish, and then our boy Bismarck engineered, was it Bismarck? I think it was Bismarck. Engineered a whole crisis over that, brought in the Austria-Hungary into it, and used sort of nationalism as a pretext to do a lot, to cement Prussia's role at least in the north of Germany. And then 1866, the Prussian-Austrian War. The war between Prussia and Austria cemented the what were they called? North Rhine Confederation, whatever. The Prussia essentially after that war, after 1866, had complete control over control over most of northern Germany, with only the four kingdoms in the south, the Catholic kingdoms in the south, aligned with Austria-Hungary. And then of course we come to 1870, where yeah, well, Franco-Prussian War, right? And that was also always engineered by Bismarck, to use nationalism to unite Germany into sort of the small German Empire. Taking off from Rocky Mountain House Airport. Ooh, okay. Sidewinder, is that still in Alberta? Because that would be interesting. I wouldn't actually. We could just like go a little bit faster, and then trim down. How do I trim down? Trim down a little bit, and this way we should be able to cover more of the distance. Excellent. Oh, but actually, if we go too fast, we'll just blow the engine and the frame. Yeah, that's probably not a good idea. It's not letting me trim down. Excuse me? Oh, the trim is automatic, is it? What do you mean? Of course I don't know how airplanes work. Or no, okay, no, let me rephrase that. I don't know the particular mechanical implements for this particular airplane. Right? That's the point. And so, yeah, I would have no idea. Like, I don't... We've talked about this in the past, right? Like, I'm not one to care too much about the specifics of one piece of equipment. Because it's never one piece of equipment that wins or loses you the war, right? Like, modern wars are... and we stray into topics that I really want to stay away from, but let me just cover this real quick. Modern wars really are won or lost based on much more than a single piece of equipment, right? It's much more about things like morale, about the supply and logistics, and so, I mean, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I guess we can talk about it. Okay. So, why is Russia doing so badly in Ukraine? A whole bunch of reasons, right? From endemic corruption to using 30-year-old... No, not even 30-year-old. They're using like 40-year-old equipment, right? Because a lot of both Russia and Ukraine are still using Soviet-era equipment. Literally, they're using the same equipment that they've inherited from the Soviet Union. And that's why you guys saw the memes on, or you guys I guess shared those memes on the letter Z being painted on like Russian vehicles. Oh, something. What did I click? No, we're good. Oh, that's okay. Where is my... Excuse me? Hello? Give me 1 second. I click something and then I don't have my no, skip that. Can I have my UI back, please? Am I still running? Excuse me? Okay, we're not paused. But why are we just stuck? Okay. Okay. Are we good now? Okay. I don't know what button I pressed. Oh, I guess I could have done this. Anyway. What was I saying? Oh yeah, that's why you guys shared those memes about the Russian vehicles all having Z on it, right? And so, right, we talked about endemic corruption, bad equipment, well, old equipment, supply lines. What really surprised me about this assault was how spread out it was, right? Both from within the Donbass, so Donetsk and Luhansk, and also towards Kharkiv and towards Kiev itself, and then from the south, from Crimea. And it just, like, 200,000 men is not that big of a force, right? Of course, in modern terms, yeah, I think modern professional armies are that size vis-a-vis their economic output. But you cannot have, like, that's a lot of dudes, or rather, that's not enough dudes for you to cover all of that area, right? What time is it? Oh, 40. Let's hide so that we can see the skyline. Yeah. It is beautiful here. The Nordics are fantastically beautiful. And originally I wanted to get to Oslo, but I don't think we're getting to Oslo today, which is a bit of a shame, but it's fine. We'll do this again next time. Okay. Let me finish my talk on Russia. So, in my opinion, at least, it felt like that the Russian High Command thought, like the people who deployed the troops, right? And we're not talking about the troops themselves. We're not talking about resistance, anything like that. It appears to me that the general staff, when they deployed these plans, they were laboring under the impression that the locals would welcome them as liberators. That is my personal interpretation of how these plans work, or how these plans looked, because it doesn't, at least from appearances, it doesn't look like they were planning to fight protracted battles in sort of these areas, right? I think the original plan might have been to what am I saying? To essentially, I don't want to say annex, but like essentially leave only token forces behind in a pacified Russian-speaking region, while the frontal assaults and the paratroopers and all of that, while those were able to go in and really pick up like prized assets. Right? Does that kind of make sense? And so the point is that I think there was weirdness in the military planning, in that they never really knew what they were doing, or they didn't really know the enemy well enough. And I don't. If Russia had spies in the ranks of the Ukraine, then they weren't like giving them an accurate picture of how things were supposed to be, right? And we've seen reports of they bought into their own. Well, the general staff certainly did. Whether anyone else did, it is a completely different question. We've seen reports of Ukrainian military personnel saying that they were that there was high levels of sympathy towards Russia in the military, even after the invasion, and yet we don't really see that sort of being presented in the way that Russia had like in the movement of the Russian forces, right? Like if you see just like general disharmony in the Ukrainian military, if you see all of, then the advance should be a little bit different. Having said that, of course, we also know that the Russian forces really very much depend on their artillery and depend on railways, right? Like that is something that really hasn't changed since the days of the Romanovs. Oh, why are you moving in that direction? Stop. Yeah. Essentially, the all versions of the Russian army, Imperial Russia, Soviet Union, modern day Russia, has always been about artillery, right? Like there's so much more artillery per unit length front line, there we go, that's the word I'm looking for, per unit length front line than basically any other army in the world, right? Like the Americans, when we think of the Americans, we think superior firepower and artillery coordination and all of that. The Americans are nowhere close to the amount of ordnance that gets called down, right? Like pinpoint precision strikes by essentially this bad boy here, even that isn't really comparable to having just tubes ready, right? Like, and that's of course sort of exemplified by the Katyushas, that we've seen since World War II and still apparently exist. But like saturation firepower, and that's to say that that's not useful. That is the F-18, yes, Sidewinder. And to say that that's not useful is really to not understand sort of the battlefield doctrine, which is lots and lots of explosives being laid down in the front line. But that really is a field army doctrine, right? Like you cannot. It's hard to use artillery against a guerrilla force, and in my from my understanding of what the front lines are looking like, that is really what the Russians are fighting. Well, that's the other question, right? The other question. We are going a little bit slow. There's not much I can do about this. We can try to teleport the F-18, but actually, let me see if I can do that. Can I do that? Oh, I can do that. Fantastic. Okay, can I travel to here? No. Oh, I can only travel to there? No. To be fair, they weren't really prepared for anything. So they were, as I said at the very beginning, right? Like at least the general staff was preparing not to fight along these roads. They were prepared for the big cities to fall to quick strikes, and then for the railways to be made ready. Since the gauge in Ukraine is the same as in Russia, it would have been really easy once they have access to all of the rail networks. But that's sort of a different story. That's sort of just a completely different story. It's again, we're not really debating Russian combat tactics. I'm not particularly interested in combat tactics. The point I was laborious. What was the point that I was laboriously trying to get to? Oh right. Why I think that this was that this wasn't planned properly. Yes, exactly. Because of all of those reasons, right? Both the endemic corruption, the fact that the assault came from too many angles, the fact that it's just weird. It seems to have launched before the even the mid-level commanders knew what was happening. I suppose I could do that actually. Let's speed up. I wonder how far it goes before I wreck the airframe. I'm just I wonder why this doesn't work. Right? Because these are all the different points that I programmed into it, but it simply won't allow me to just fast forward to that. That's why. Anyway. Oh, we're definitely going faster. That's good. No. I do very much like the advertisement on the Foreign Legion website though, that says that you gain valuable experience. You're right, Sidewinder. I just realized that as well. I don't know why I was sitting in the yellow for so long. Or I was sitting in the green for so long. I could have just accelerated up to 570, or as close to 570 as we can get, right? Oh yeah, like it is. Now we're getting into politics again. I really don't want to talk about politics, but essentially the point is yes, you should all feel sorry for Ukrainians, absolutely. Let's not forget that Ukraine is still, or is still a country that itself has endemic corruption, right? Like just because they're getting invaded doesn't mean that those people that suddenly everyone is like there's definitely moments of unity, but that's what humanity is, right? We are united when we have an external enemy, and when that external enemy looks like they're about to fall away, then the disunity springs up again. So we are definitely not like it's just impossible for that country to suddenly come out of this war and be a model democracy. Ukraine had never been a model democracy, even with Zelensky himself. Like there were questions about, you know, his connections to powerful bankers and all of that. And that's not to say that he's a corrupt little oligarch, right? Because it's I mean, he's at least doing his job better than most leaders would. But still, actually, have you guys watched Servants of the People? I watched the first episode, and the if you actually look at that, the parallels between the TV show and his own career is actually staggering, right? Like, because essentially what happened in this TV show is Zelensky plays this teacher, and one day whatever, like his students were recruited to go build a house, whatever, for and for one of the oligarchs, doesn't matter. And so he was railing about, you know, how they never take away students from math, they always take students from their history classes, etc. And it was a profanity filled video that one of the students filmed of him, and the student then uploaded it online, and suddenly and it got like, what, I can't remember, 6-7 million views over a week in the story. And then he ran and they elected him, right? Like the oligarchs, the first scene of the show was actually the oligarchs talking about, you know, whether we should let the people decide. It was a friendly bet among the oligarchs about letting each of their own candidates sort of, because they control the candidates. That's the whole premise, and that technically was how Ukraine was run for the longest time, right? If we remember Yanukovych, I think, yes. Actually, let me look it up so I don't look like a fool. Victor, that's right. Yes, who's now living in Russia. Essentially, these oligarchs and their pet presidents. And so he was railing about it. He was a history teacher, so he was railing about how, oh, if you never learn history, you would it just repeats over and over, and was profanity filled. And when his students uploaded it, and apparently everyone in Ukraine saw it, and just as he was apologizing to his own students, one of his students was like, "My dad said he'll vote for you." Because in the video he also said that, you know, if I were the president, I would do this, or like I would do a better job. They should get the oligarchs to live on a president's salary, and the president to live on an no, they should get the oligarchs to live on a teacher's salary, and teachers to live on a president's salary, blah blah. And so that's why he got elected in the show. And to me, that's really striking, right? Because um, essentially that is how he gained enough fame to then actually run for president himself of Ukraine. Like his entire show was essentially one giant profanity-filled rant against the system. And so by doing so, like he essentially got to the actual role of the president of Ukraine by doing exactly what his character did on the show. Anyway, that's the short story long. And I do agree, Sidewinder. But like we knew that the Ukrainian military was essentially that, right? Conscripts as cheap labor used for glorifying oligarchs that controlled and like sought rent from the military industrial complex. And I mean, that's why Ukraine was considered one of the more corrupt countries in the world in the past. You know, like, and suddenly to see all of this being sort of just swept under the rug is, I feel, doing a disservice to a lot of that. That's not to say that they're not bravely fighting for their own homeland, and that's why those conscripts are definitely more invested in the fight than the Russian conscripts on the other side. Yeah, just I know I'm a. You've told me plenty of times that I am a party pooper. Yes, yes. It's technically my job, right? Like half of you hire me to do that just to tell you that your entire organization is shit and that you should just sell your company and get away and not be executives anymore. Yes, that's part of what I do. Um well, I mean, to be fair, I have had the experience. I have currently the experience, and my companies run better. So, ha. Anyway, what was I saying? Right. Ukrainian military is what it is. I think part of it is simply that there's a bit of gallus humor and of course, you know, like a lot of swearing, and that's perfectly fine, especially in these really high stress, high tension situations. And they are obviously much more invested, as we've said earlier, in the fight, and so therefore Ukrainian morale is much better, but also Ukrainian equipment is much better now, right? Like we're not talking about armor, uh we're not talking about actual armor, because armor takes forever to get to Ukraine, and the point of the West arming Ukraine isn't to have pitched field battles with Russia, but rather to prepare you. As a side note, right? Like you just know that the CIA is preparing to support the insurgency. Like our boy Joe has said it time and again. And so a lot of these man-portable weapons that are getting into Ukraine are definitely not, like, if you wanted to completely block Russia from taking over Ukraine, there are many other things that you could do. But obviously NATO is yeah, NATO is first of all a purely defensive alliance, and since Ukraine is strictly speaking not part of NATO, that means that NATO cannot, by nature of its own charter, cannot be involved. That's not to say then that on a government to government level that you cannot support Ukraine with weapons and blah 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 and blah blah blah, and that's essentially what has happened. But a lot of that, you just know that they are preparing the Ukrainians to essentially bleed our boy Vlad, right? Like, yeah, just it's just what. Okay, they did, and no, also like step by steps for Molotovs, whatever, and so, yeah, the conscription is an issue, or it was an issue. Now we have, you know, eager young lads going back to fight, and that's, you know, that's nationalism at its peak. And personally, I'm not one to support nationalism simply because it is the root cause for 2 world wars, right? So it's hard for me as sort of a small student of history to feel any comfort at nationalistic tendencies, especially in countries that do not have the institutions to control these forces, especially as the conflict starts winding down. right? And so that's my personal view on that. Also, being non-white, I've said this. I've said this in the. Well, I mean, technically Asians aren't white, right? So, um, there is a bit of a bias here going on as well, right? If we look at the Polish-Ukrainian border, we've seen many examples of racism where refugees were only allowed in if their skin was light colored enough, and those are difficult things really for us to square in this day and age, because obviously there is an entire people that are suffering and fighting for their own homes, and so they must be supported, absolutely. It's just unfortunate that this is, or rather it's fortunate for Ukraine that Ukrainians are considered white, right? And therefore there is some subconscious bias going on both in the media, but also within the EU, right? Because let's be completely honest, right? Like we've seen the counterfactual, which is if the refugees were not Ukrainians, but if they were Syrians, then, and this happened 2015, so 7 years ago, then the borders look completely different. And we even see that counterfactual right now with the borders being completely different. As I said, like we have documented records of I'm way over time, aren't I? Yeah, we have documented records of essentially almost institutionalized racism at the border with those who are not Ukrainians or white, or whose skin aren't white enough, simply not being allowed in, right? Like we have seen yeah, exactly, yeah, that article essentially, but more like it's a difficult topic, of course, for us to really consider, simply because there is so much at stake for not just not just the EU, but also Ukrainians themselves, right? So it is not something that I'm prepared to argue too much about. No. We were supposed to talk about the Nordics. Of course, the Nordics didn't happen. I'm sorry to Denmark. So Sweden. You know what? We'll do this. Tomorrow we'll play EU4, and we will talk only about the Nordics. How about that? Cool. All right. Thank you very much for watching. That's it. Yes, we're way over time. So in conclusion, we made it to Oslo. That's great. Well, I mean, 40 nautical miles. Doesn't matter. Okay, we're good. Once again, thank you very much for watching. In conclusion, please download Firefox. Please don't do Chrome. And yeah, we will talk about the Nordics tomorrow. Yes. Bye.